May 11th, 1960, 8:05 p.m. Bus Route 203 tears through the thick, damp fog of a Buenos Aires suburb. A middle-aged, balding man with thick glasses steps off into the mud. His ID says Ricardo Clement, a regular factory worker, a quiet model father. He slowly makes his way down the unpaved, desolate stretch of Garibaldi Street, heading towards his rundown brick house, but he has no idea that just 30 feet away, inside a dark car parked on the shoulder, cold, calculating eyes are locked dead onto him. The men inside can feel their hearts pounding against their ribs. Their hands grip the steering wheel tight. The orders from Israel's highest intelligence agency are absolute. No guns. Take him alive at all costs. Because the pathetic, shivering factory worker walking through the mist isn't Ricardo Clement. He is Adolf Eichmann, the chief architect of the most brutal genocide in human history, the man who sent millions to their deaths during the Second World War. For 15 years, he has been a ghost. He vanished without a single trace. And tonight, the greatest, most relentless manhunt in international intelligence is coming to a violently abrupt end. This isn't just a kidnapping. This is the judgment of fate, a death sentence delivered from hell itself. And this is exactly how a tiny intelligence agency crossed every line to drag him out of the shadows. The world in 1945 was a massive, smoldering ruin. As the fascist empire collapsed, thousands of high-ranking war criminals scrambled for the exits. They used elaborate rat lines set up by former SS members, forged new identities, altered their faces, and vanished into South America. Adolf Eichmann was one of them. He wasn't the guy pulling the trigger or standing guard at the camps. He was the cold-blooded, calculating mastermind behind the logistics of death. He routed the trains, tallied the human cargo, and ensured the genocide machine ran with a terrifying, frictionless efficiency. Letting a monster like this walk free was a slap in the face to justice. For 15 long years, intelligence agencies around the globe, from the CIA to MI6, had practically thrown in the towel. Eichmann's files gathered dust in cold storage, and the world seemed ready to forget he ever existed. They assumed he was dead, or that plastic surgery had turned him into someone else entirely. But one nation never forgot, and they sure as hell never forgave: Israel. Putting Eichmann on trial wasn't just a legal duty. It was a supreme political mandate, a blood debt owed to millions of silenced souls. But finding him in South America was like finding a needle in a continent-sized haystack. Argentina, at the time, was the perfect safe haven, a massive country with a government that was more than happy to turn a blind eye to the ghosts of the past. Every lead tracked down by Mossad, Israel's legendary intelligence agency, hit a dead end. Until late 1957, when a faint glimmer of hope came from the most unlikely source imaginable. A blind Jewish refugee named Lothar Hermann, living in Argentina, sent a letter claiming his daughter was dating a boy who bragged a little too much about his father's glorious Nazi past. The boy's last name was Eichmann. At first, Mossad was highly skeptical. Why would a cautious ghost like Eichmann let his identity slip so easily? How could the architect of the Holocaust be living in a poverty-stricken, unlit shack in a Buenos Aires slum? Isser Harel, the director of Mossad at the time, was a deeply paranoid and strictly principled man. He deployed multiple undercover operatives to Argentina just to verify. They posed as repairmen and couriers, snapping blurry surveillance photos from afar. After cross-referencing the cartilage structure of his ear from a grainy pre-1945 photograph, Mossad's biometric experts delivered a bombshell conclusion to the top brass. The probability that Ricardo Clement was Adolf Eichmann was 99%. In that exact moment, history pivoted. Harrell made a crucial decision. He wouldn't ask the Argentine government for help. He knew their loose, corrupt legal system might just give Eichmann the loophole he needed to vanish again. Instead, Operation Finale was greenlit, a highly elite task force comprised of the absolute best in surveillance, disguise, and hand-to-hand combat was smuggled into Argentina under a dozen different covers. The ultimate game of cat and mouse had officially begun. For months, Mossad operatives disguised as mechanics, tourists, and vagrants painstakingly mapped out every single step Eichmann took. He had a stubborn habit. He always returned home on the exact same bus, at the exact same time, every evening. The dead-on precision of a former Nazi officer. And then, the fateful night of May 11th, 1960, arrived. Let's rewind to the opening of our story. As Eichmann trudged down that dark dirt road, a Mossad agent slowly approached him. He called out in Spanish, "Excuse me, just a moment." Eichmann froze. He reached into his pocket, maybe for a gun, maybe for a cyanide pill. But it was too late. In a fraction of a second, the Mossad agent lunged like a wild animal, wrestling the man to the ground. A brief, violent struggle played out in absolute silence. Two more agents burst from the car, grabbed Eichmann by his arms and legs, and shoved him into the back seat. The car gunned the engine and tore off into the night, leaving the empty street behind as if nothing had ever happened. The entire abduction took less than 50 seconds. They dragged Eichmann to a pre-rented safe house on the outskirts of the city. There, he was strapped to a bed, blindfolded, and completely cut off from the outside world. The intense psychological interrogations began. The team checked every scar, every microscopic identifying mark on his body, specifically looking for the blood type tattoo under his left armpit, a trademark of the SS that Eichmann had desperately tried to burn away. Finally, faced with undeniable proof and crushing psychological pressure, the broken man spat out his confession. "I am Adolf Eichmann." In that moment, the air in the room froze. These Mossad agents, many of whom had lost their own families in the death camps, had to bite their lips until they bled just to keep from pulling their guns and blowing his brains out on the spot. The orders were clear: bring him back to Israel alive to face justice. But catching Eichmann was only half the battle. The real nightmare, a logistical impossibility, was figuring out how to smuggle the world's most notorious war criminal out of Argentina without tipping off their national security forces. The escape plan they engineered was a masterpiece of pure audacity and madness. On May 20th, Israel sent an official delegation to Buenos Aires on a special El Al national airline flight to attend Argentina's independence celebrations. It was the perfect cover. Mossad doctors injected Eichmann with a heavy dose of sedatives, leaving him in a groggy, semi-conscious state. They dressed him in a standard El Al flight crew uniform, pulled a cap down over his face, and slapped on a pair of dark sunglasses. Forged documents stated he was a crew member who had suffered a mild concussion from a car accident and needed an emergency medical evacuation back home. With ice in their veins, the task force propped up Eichmann, who looked like nothing more than a drunk co-worker, and marched him right past Argentine customs and airport police. Their hearts were hammering against their ribs, but They kept their faces totally relaxed, even joking around. They slipped through the security checkpoint without a hitch, loaded Eichmann onto the plane, and lifted off, leaving South America behind forever. That historic flight touched down in Tel Aviv, shocking the entire globe. The subsequent trial of Adolf Eichmann in Jerusalem was broadcast worldwide, exposing the horrifying, unfiltered truth of the Holocaust and searing the concept of the banality of evil into the human consciousness. Operation Finale wasn't just one of the most legendary, earth-shattering espionage missions of all time. It was an ironclad declaration from Israel. There is nowhere on this earth safe for our enemies. No matter where you hide, no matter what name you take, no matter how many decades pass, we will find you. If this historic heist of justice had your heart racing, hit that subscribe button right now so you never miss another classified crime file being cracked wide open. Next week, we're heading deep underground into a pitch-black tunnel where a crew vanished into thin air with tens of millions of dollars right under the cops' noses. You seriously do not want to miss this.